A new week and the worst riots since 2011. The Prime Minister has expressed concerns. The deep-seated tensions have been exposed of vulnerabilities in our society. We are witnessing a distressing rise in what seems to be right-wing activity targeting vulnerable communities, instilling fear. Over the past 6 days, rioters have attacked various public institutions and businesses, including a university, food banks, a citizens' advice centre, a library, houses accommodating asylum seekers, and mosques, and they've done so under the guise of patriotism wrapped in the St George's Cross, but their actions are far from patriotic. As Assistant Chief Constable Lindsay Butterfield aptly puts it, the behaviour displayed has been nothing short of disgusting. She noted that even those who stood by and watched were absolutely complicit in these acts of violence. And it's that move towards identifying the complicity and to identifying the incitement, which I think is going to be the significant turn in this story. And I think it's going to shock. The Prime Minister addressed the nation, vowing a firm response. His experience as part of the justice system during the 2011 riots has undoubtedly informed his current stance. He made it clear, "I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves." This statement reflects a zero-tolerance approach, emphasizing swift and decisive action against both the perpetrators and those inciting violence from behind the scenes. The situation reached a particularly egregious point with attacks on hotels housing asylum seekers. In Rotherham, rioters threw bricks and set bins on fire outside a Holiday Inn Express. A similar scene unfolded in Tamworth, where windows were smashed and fires started, and these actions, often spurred by misinformation and xenophobic rhetoric, highlight a dangerous trend. As Rosa Friedman from the University of Reading has said, the riots are a result of the former Conservative government giving legitimacy to a small minority of racists. And, of course, in that, I see the finger wag of Suella Braverman. The role of far-right agitators in these events cannot be underestimated. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson, has been a prominent figure who has been identified in stoking these tensions. I don't think he's done it directly, and I don't think he needed even to open his mouth to have done it. He is simply there. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem, because if it comes to a court case about this, I don't think there's very much evidence. I mean, I'm sure the legal system can be as aggressive as it wants to be about Tommy Robinson, but I think the time has come to leave him alone. The problems need to be, or the issue needs to focus on the other people who are more actively involved. People like Nigel Farage, who's been criticised for indirectly encouraging anti-immigration sentiment by the elliptical, the stochastic, the hints which he's put out, the failure to clarify, the failure to pull back. He has birthed this movement, criticised for indirectly encouraging the anti-immigration sentiment. That has contributed, that has fermented, that has fomented this crisis. And remember, the word crisis is often used as a synonym for chaos. It's not. Crisis is about a decision. The crisis, the moment of decision. The moment where you walk by or you get involved. And while Farage has done his weasel words in condemning the violence, his framing of the protests as a reaction to fear, shared by millions, is dangerously misleading. The impact of these events extends beyond the immediate violence. A surge in extreme right-wing activity has led to a significant increase in threats against Muslims and other minority communities. Tel Mama, a national monitoring group, reports a 5-fold increase in such threats. It's not just an issue of public order, it's a crisis of social cohesion and safety for many in our communities. In response, the government has initiated several measures. Starmer convened a Cobra meeting early today, signalling the seriousness with which the situation is being addressed. There are plans for courts to sit longer hours to expedite the processing of suspects, ensuring swift justice. As Diana Johnson, a Home Office minister, has said, the approach will be to nick them quick, to remove rioters from the streets swiftly and act as a deterrent. Well, that's the right meaning of deterrent, isn't it? The question of whether to arrest individuals like Robinson, Farage, and even controversial figures like Andrew Tate, who's been linked to inciting violence or spreading harmful rhetoric, is crucial. Tate, the fellow who boasts about being the champion, the 4-time champion kickboxer, who's been linked to inciting violence, spreading harmful rhetoric. While freedom of speech is a fundamental right, it does not extend to incitement to violence or hate speech. The law must hold accountable those who cross this line, and however elliptically. And that's going to be the difficulty that the law faces. And if the law can be speeded up, can sit longer hours to process this, then it can sit longer hours to deal with whistleblowers, to deal with other issues about the tardiness of our criminal justice system. It needs to get its finger out and its act together. If it can act in one area with speed, swiftly, then it can act in another area with speed. It needs to sort out that backlog, as does the Home Office, as does the NHS. So, if we are facing a crisis, if we are facing a decision moment, that is it. Put in the hours, sort out the problem, wake up. The law must hold people accountable. And the recent riots underscore the urgent need for a united and firm response from the police, from the courts, from the government. As Starmer has said, this violent mob does not represent our country, and we will bring them to justice. It's time for old, right-minded individuals to recognize this age-old commitment to stand together against hate and against violence. Our society's strength lies in its diversity and its commitment to one thing, to justice and to unity. Actually, that's two things, isn't it? I think it's one thing. Justice is unity. If you go back to the Republic and the definition of justice by Plato, it's about everything working together. It's about cohesion. And we need to reaffirm that value of cohesion, that value of justice, to ensure that those who seek to undermine it are held responsible.